get justice for the victims of any instances whereby there is unlawful use of force and firearms by police officers. Thank you, Ashley.
All right, Festus, perhaps the next question would have been a status update on concluded investigations and convictions. Perhaps when you're submitting your next take, you could kindly give us a breakdown, because numbers don't lie, and perhaps they will help in changing the public perception in terms of what IPOA is doing to get rid of instances of police excesses and whatnot. So I'd like us to give the floor to some of our listeners right here. And we still appreciate the presence of Chris Otieno and Wanjiro. But let's broaden the discussion. I can see Dante Kim, if I've pronounced the username correctly, has requested to speak. We equally have Nasser G. I hope I pronounce your name correctly as well. So perhaps you could start with Dante Kim. If you can hear me right now, the mic is yours. Kindly use parliamentary words. This is a forum with all kinds of people, including intellectuals. So just watch your words. Dante Kim, kindly, the floor is yours. Okay, he doesn't seem to be with us. Naseji, might you want to say something?
Yes.
Kindly continue. Yes, sir.
So my name is Nasaji, but you can call me Morris Derry Kariuki Karibi. Bro, mimi niruhusini tu nitumie. I have no problem speaking in English, but I don't think this discussion, whatever I'm about to say, I don't think it will be best understood if I used English. Nataka tu nitumie lugha yenye niko fluent nayo. Bro, mimi naishi Kayole. Mimi ni fundi wa rangi. I am an interior designer. I do tiles, gypsum and all those kind of jobs ndani ya nyumba. Nataka niwaambie wale mafundi niko nao wote, ndugu yangu, kila mtu ako na kesi ya polisi, including me myself. Tulikuwa tupigwa risasi hivi kidogo tu, ilibakia kupigwa risasi, na the reason why ni kwa sababu tulikuwa mavijana more than 4 na tulikuwa tunatembea na tulikuwa tunacheka tukitembea, like the way you can have a colleague tu hata kwa ofisi, hata kama ni corporate agency, kuna kuangana those friendly discussions. So we were on the public road, but polisi walitokea nyuma na probox, bro. Sasa mimi naambia watu wangu tusonge hii pande, gari inatufuata. Tuende hii pande nyingine, gari inatufuata. Finally nikawaambia tusimame. Do you know those officers walishuka hiyo gari, they hakuwa na uniform. Walishuka kama wamekok. Immediately nikafeel kukojoa. So I said, please, acha nikojoe. And then I made some 3 steps to go and kukojoa. That guy fired towards me. He didn't fire in the air. He fired to the alifire towards me. And then nikamuuliza, bro, mimi nataka kukojoa rada. And then he was, unataka kukimbia? Ati unaficha bunduki. Naficha bunduki gani? So luckily for us, tulikuwa tuko na marangi kwa mwili na kwa mikono. So they were able to, tulikuwa able kuapprove nye sisi si waizi ama whatever. Sisi si wrongdoers, sisi ni watu tu tumetoka kufanya job. Bro, the reason why napeana history yote ni kwa sababu ya hii. I have had instances in hapo nyuma where polisi alikuja, hiyo IPOA hata sijaiona kayo. Mimi hata sijawahi sikia mtu ana investigate kesi kayo ati ama one of my guys wenye tuliripoti tumedhulumiwa na polisi ama ati tushaikuja tukakuwa questioned. Where is that IPOA? Unajua mnaongea hapa online, mnadhani ati ground ni iko hapa online. Watu huku nje hata hakuna mtu anaamini hao polisi. If you came where I am, nilishaishikwa nikaandikiwa touting. Mimi ni fundi wa rangi, nimeonyesha. This is another instance, nilishikiwa Kayole Junction. Nikauliza bro rada, wakani kamba ziliisha, pingu ziliisha. So tulifungwa shule sisi. Tukafunganishwa shule, tukaingizwa kwa gari na nikaandikiwa touting. Na wakati tulienda police station tukasema tujiongelee hata tutoke na 1000, wakakataa. Wakasema ati hii ni koti imeitisha. Unasikia? Koti imeitisha hawa watu. Kwa hivyo sisi hatukuachiliwa na tulishikangwa wana Sunday. Monday kotini. Kawaida ya Makadara, ukifika Makadara unachaji yangu 3000 kama ni touting. Tuliambiwa nyinyi yani koti inataka hawa watu. And I'm speaking this because it happens. Police stations zinashikanga watu, zinawapeleka ndani for no reason. Mtu ametoka na kuenda kununua maziwa, ameenda kununua mkate hapo, ako na vest, anashikwa hivyo. Tulikuwa na mjamaa alikuwa amevaa alikuwa na slippers. Sasa huyo alikuwa na tout nini? Hiyo IPOA iko wapi? Wakati tulifikishwa Makadara, tulichajwa everybody 5,000. What in happen in Thika, it is just a tactic to scare us. Wanataka kutushtua ndio tusijaribu kutetea haki zetu. Mimi ndugu yangu mahali naishi siishi maisha mzuri, na hata niko afadhali mimi na avoidingi kulipia mtoto wangu shule na vitu zingine. There are people who are tired to an extent they don't care whether there is an IPOA ama kuna mtu bado watatokea. My question is this. The reason why I'm bitter like this nikiongea, I see IPOA hapa hivi iko online ndio ametoka kuongea. Bro, kwani ghetto si Kenya? Ghetto si Kenya? That is my question. Why is it that mimi mwenye nimedhulumiwa na polisi since nikiwa high school kuwekelewa bangi which sikuwa navuta, which sivutangi, kuwekelewa vitu zenye hakuna, polisi anakuwekea hadi ana plant evidence on you. Anakuja na roll moja, wengine wanakushika hadi wanakuambia hii bangi najua ni ya wapi. A friend of mine was arrested with bang and then collect hii bangi umetoa kwa pedi mgani? Hapana, hii si ya huyo, hii najua. Polisi ndio mnaniambia wanakuja kuinvestigate ama ni wengine mnaleta wafanye makosa ndio sasa. Juu mimi hiyo IPOA yenu I have never seen it in Kayole. And I can call 100 of my friends who can clarify who can also say they have never been questioned by IPOA. I don't know how it does in its investigation. Hatujawahi ona brother. Ni maboy wangapi wameuawa Kayole kwa cases zenye ni very understandable, like hata kama alikuwa mwizi, kwani huyo mwizi alikuwa anaiba akiua watu? Si alikuwa anaiba tu vitu na anawacha watu. Kwa nini polisi wanakuja wanampiga risasi ati anaangushwa? Alafu sikia tunaachiwa yeye hapo mchana mzima ati tufunze adabu. Which IPOA are we talking about? Hii IPOA iliformiwa lini? Kwa sababu mimi nilimaliza high school 2016. Up to date I have never seen a single hiyo IPOA iko na branch Matopeni police station. Let me ask for an instance. Does IPOA have offices in all the police stations around Kayole? Mimi nataka kuelewa. Kwa sababu you only have one police station in Kayole, that is Matopeni police station. Hizo zingine ni police post. Ile iko karibu police station nyingine ni Ruai police station. I know my facts. Mihango kuna police post, hata si police station. Sasa hizo police post zote nakwambia hivyo hata hazinanga choo. They are very dirty. Kwanza ya Soweto, you should go and see the police station in Soweto. Which officers are you investigating? These officers mnatuma kwa hizi police stations zinakaa kama ni kibanda ya chakula ama which officers are you? Kwa sababu those officers will always be greedy, they will never be accountable ever. All the police stations najua zote za East, they can never they are not accountable. Hao ni kujaza wanajazanga vitabu obina whatever. Otherwise hakuna mtu yoyote mimi najua ako na kesi ya polisi ishaimwendea vizuri. Hizi stories zote unasikia Umori akisema hapo, not disrespect bro, mimi sina ubaya na wewe, mimi najua unafanya job yako, lakini I am pointing at the whole organization. Hiyo nini yote ya IPOA man, kama mnasema mna investigate cases, wacheni kuinvestigate cases zenye ati ziko na nitasemaje, ziko na attention na mnasahau ghetto. Hizi kura zote hawa watu wanasikiza hapa, kama kuna kura zote ni sisi tuko nazo, na sisi hatushughulikiangu. Tunaishi kwa vumbi, tunakaa kwa vumbi, maji yetu imechanganyika na sewage na tunakaanga hivyo, lakini sisi tu bado ndio tunakujiwa. I want to encourage my fellow brothers hapa, msishtuke Morio ama Morio anajaribu kututishia ndio tusitokee tena kuenda kuuliza haki yetu. Brother, amuka, tusijaribu. Next time anything comes up, mtu asitishiwe ati atashikwa. Watushike, watupeleke huko. Ni free lunch, free breakfast, free supper. Hizo ni vitu mimi sipatangi. I'm lucky nikikula mara 3 kwa siku. I'm very lucky if I can afford to buy anything at any given time. Kwa sababu budget yangu ni ya 2,000 3,000. Hakuna kitu hiyo IPOA. Mimi nataka mniambie tu tafadhali, how where are the ghetto kids in this? Kwa sababu we suffer the most. And then tunapatiwa attention online. Oh, this has happened, this has happened. But after 2-3 months, ni moto ya karatasi, inazimika, inapotea. I'm done bro, nimemaliza. Lakini naweza endelea. I can talk till tomorrow on this.
Hapana, acha tuwapatie wengine chance either though, and we're glad you're safe. IPOA will respond to that, and by IPOA I mean Festus, who's here. But even before we get to Festus, Odindo, you raised your hand. Over to you.
Odindo Collins, if you can hear us. Okay, let's have someone else. I can see Dante Kim has lifted his hand right now. Dante, if you can hear me, niaje? Dante? Okay, Wanjiru has equally requested to speak. Wanjiru, if you can hear me, the mic is yours. Kindly proceed.
Thank you so much to whoever gave me the mic. I appreciate. I normally I do have questions for actually IPOA, but you actually said we should speak in a respectful language, so I'm trying to be as respectful as I can. Um, okay, thank you. I just want to ask: do IPOA use what is the timeline for maybe whoever is responding for IPOA? What is the timeline do you use to actually investigate cases? Do you use hours, days, months, or an entire century? Because we have been having justice for Ojwang the other day, where we saw police people killing people, Ojwang, and being beaten in the police cell, and we haven't found justice for him. And to make the waters worse, there is the controversial thing of Langat getting back to office and Lagat not getting back to office. You know, we as citizens, we're actually concerned about that. So what timelines do you use to investigate a case? Should we wait for the next 50 academic years or 3 academic years? I have no idea what timelines you guys do use. That is the first question to IPOA. And on the topic on shoot in the leg order, I'm so concerned, or maybe I would also ask guys for IPOA for the same. I'm concerned by the fact that the question would be, let me paraphrase it very well. Let's put for us, the president gave the order to shoot the leg in order to make us, be cripples and be taken to the court to respond to why we went to the protest. So in this case, in this particular case, you see a police officer shooting Wanjiru on the leg. After shooting Wanjiru on the leg, Wanjiru falls down and Wanjiru dies. God forbid, or everybody will die sometime. So will you say the police was following the president order to shoot Wanjiru on the leg and Wanjiru died? And, say the police was in the wrong, or was the police following the president order to shoot Wanjiru on the leg? Because it's actually not good, because the president is actually ordering to murder people on the leg. We saw Rex Masai, who even now has not even got justice. And we even saw that police person shooting Rex Masai on the leg until he died, So the question is, will you actually now make it a very criminalize the police officer who actually shoot Wanjiru on the leg and Wanjiru died? But the order actually came from the president. So the case in the court would be, but the lawyers would argue the order was to shoot the leg. So Wanjiru died for no good reason. What rules are you actually putting for this shoot in the leg order? Because this will actually kill people. It will not only kill Wanjiru, it will kill my whole generation. It will kill a whole nation. Do you and the question of how much time do you use to actually investigate these cases actually come in handy? Because if you take a whole academic year to actually say, now this police officer like Kawesu Morangeri, he actually shot Rex Masai, but until now the case has prolonged. It is 1 year past. Rex Masai died, 1 year past, and months, and a month almost, and he hasn't got justice. And last time I saw in the court, he was the police also like, oh no, it wasn't my bullet, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. The question is, how long do you people take to administer justice? How much time do you need? You have the videos, you have us that's the witnesses, you have everything that is needed, but you do not. Why? Because we already know justice delayed is justice denied. And I don't want to speak much, so I'm gonna yield the mic. But please respond for how much time do you need to actually respond and investigate cases? Because if you take 3 academic days or 3 academic years, it's not gonna heal anybody. It's going to create more evil to the society. It's going to create more hostility. Like right now, it's creating more hostility. You imagine Lex Masai's case is 1 year old. Many cases are so many years old, and we're still waiting. So thank you so much to whoever gave me the mic from the Standard. I yield the mic.
Asante Wanjiro, thanks for raising your questions in a proper manner. So she's questioning the timelines when it comes to investigating these cases, because there's a common narrative that the wheels of justice grind slowly. Let's listen into Brian Ogola. He requested to speak as well. I'll kindly be brief, straight to the point, with parliamentary decorum, quote unquote. Brayo, niaje?
Hi, good. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to share with the fellow Kenyans on this good discussion. So I have 2 concerns, and I'll go directly. So at one point, I sympathize with IPOA because IPOA imeshikwa. Because like some of the question and concerns we are having, we are asking IPOA to solve a political problem or leadership problem. Because how the system is so rotten that IPOA is in a scramble to fix the patches in our rotten leadership crisis. Unapata when the leadership go rogue, na wako in cohort with some of the leadership of police, wale wana main, IPOA will struggle. Yes, IPOA has the authority and mandate to investigate, but they will struggle. Maybe it's even issuing summons to the senior police. There's collusion. There's every other thing you can imagine that will make their cases defective, including maybe police, maybe higher rank police appearing and covering up their junior, that they gave orders or they were not in certain areas, like we've seen by the ongoing cases. So I sympathize with them because Kenyans are really angry, and Kenyans are asking them to go over and beyond to solve things that maybe they may not have a real teeth to deal with. But also there is also a lot of incompetence in IPOA. We've seen subtle, like unaona hii kesi ya Ojwang, unaona like everybody can see, like unaona a lot of dilly-dallying. There's a bit of protection, like unaona there's hii kesi iko directed to shield maybe a particular people from facing justice. So that is one aspect I'm looking at it. The second aspect, the IPOA might consider it. I don't know when they are taking on it. I think IPOA should be given direct prosecution powers to handle these cases and prosecute them in court. I don't know where the legal mechanism, where this one can be, where they can get a legal mechanism or mandate, because most of the cases wakishamalizwa na public prosecution, unapata it's been a watered down version, or unapata aina ile zila ama aina ile strength of legal authority, how it or aina the right game plan that IPOA maybe initiated ikipeleka kwa kotini. So I don't know how legally feasible this might be done, but I feel if IPOA investigated this case, they should be the one taking the lead in prosecuting these cases. That is the long shot of my presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Brian Ogola. Thanks for keeping it short, straight to the point. We have Mizani 254. He's not new to this space. Mizani, over to you, briefly, kindly.
Thank you, Jesse and Ashley. Great to be here once again. And greetings to all the speakers, listeners, and my colleagues at large. My name is Eli from Mizani 254, and I have 3 questions, I believe so, to the IPOA and Chris, who is a security expert. Now, first to IPOA, last time, JC, we had this talk. I'm happy we addressed the issue of compensation, but unfortunately, IPOA was not here. Now that they are here, I am looking also at the processes through which a victim of police brutality or violence would have to undergo in order to get their compensation. A lot of Kenyans that went on the street were demanding for compensation and haki or justice to happen. IPOA team, when you look at your recommendations of compensation, it can only happen after the case has been concluded. Do you think it's something or time we revised this approach such that once the case has been identified and it can be proved that in fact the person or the victim we are talking about was actually a victim of police brutality, compensation should be initiated immediately? Because we've seen political players use this opportunity to dish out a few millions here and there, and it looks like that is how compensation has to happen. That would be my first question. Secondly, there's the issue one of the gentlemen from Kayole has just spoken about, and this got me because we talk about the policing and how it has to happen. There's the standing order, among others. However, there's the internal affairs also. How do you coordinate when you have such cases? And is it just a matter of public perception that you're doing nothing towards it? And how can you gain back the confidence of the public that, in fact, when such cases happening, we don't just concentrate on what is getting the public limelight, but also other ills that are happening within the police? And to the security expert, that is, I believe it's Chris, sorry. Chris, we saw during the Mandamano in the month of June, police officers looking as though they were being escorted with goons. And the perception from those films was that they were walking or working in cohort with the goons. What do you make of such a scenario when you hear the president and the interior minister coming to Kenyans and telling them that, in fact, those who are goons, we are going to prosecute them for terrorism, among others? Yet, from what we saw, unless our eyes were being, played magical games, it was actually the police who were walking and working in cohort with the goons. What is your analysis of this? Thank you.
All right, Mizani 254, Eli, as we know him now, Asante for your contribution. Well, I think most of the suggestions, questions have been forwarded towards IPOA, so we can let Festus have a round of reply, because starting with the questions, IPOA in the ghetto, kwa nini IPOA iko kwa east kwa mabist? Unajua, their presence in Kayole, equally a status update on the concluded investigations and convictions, perhaps with keen interest with the Gen Z protests held last year and the loss of lives that was witnessed, and this year as well. What statistics in terms of investigations and convictions do we have? Timelines when investigating these cases. One of the ladies really raised this question, and perhaps you can break down the timelines around investigating some of these high-profile questions. Equally, a suggestion around gaining confidence of the public. IPOA is definitely in bad light. So how do we plan on gaining confidence and police working in cahoots with goons, as was witnessed during the initial protest this year? Over to you, Festus.
And before you even pick it up, Festus, we have one street court KE who is asking, what has IPOA done structurally and policy-wise to reform this colonial architecture of policing, quote unquote?
Festus, are you still with us?
Hello, Jesse. Yes, I'm still here.
Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, you have a lot to answer. Go ahead.
Yes, let me try and address some of the questions. The questions by Morris Derek, and I think the question is mbona IPOA haiko kwa ghetto. IPOA iko kwa ghetto na tuko na kesi mob ambazo zimetoka ghetto. Right now we have about 233 cases that are in court, about 230 cases that are in court. Most of them are not high profile cases that Kenyans know. And so the cases are there in court. We have currently over 30 convictions of police officers who have been convicted for various offenses. And most of these are not high-profile cases. So there are cases that are there. And let me tie this to the question ambayo iliulizwa na Wanjiru. How long does investigations take? What is the timeline for conduct of investigations? Now that depends on the nature and complexity of investigations and the evidence available. Kuna investigation, it will take a short period of time, depending on the evidence available. And there's another investigation that will take some time before the evidence is available to actually make recommendations. But I think we also conflate as Kenyans. Sometimes we forget that IPOA's mandate is also limited. Wacha nikupatie example ya kesi ambayo imekuwa raised hapa, kesi ya Rex Masai ambayo iko koti. IPOA ilimaliza kesi ya Rex Masai na hiyo kesi iko koti. And of course, complaint ni kwamba hiyo kesi may take too long, over 1 year. Now, IPOA does not control the court diary and the proceedings in court that are being done by prosecution. That is a different process that is not controlled at all by IPOA. So there are cases that have been there that IPOA has investigated, zimeenda DPP, zikaenda koti, but they take a long time also in the courts. But IPOA is not mandated to control that process when the case is at the DPP, when the case is in the courts. So mandate yetu iko limited to conduct of investigation. Tukimaliza conduct investigation, tuna hand over your file kwa Director of Public Prosecution. Thus, the Director of Public Prosecution is the one who determines whether to proceed with charges. Akidetermine ata proceed, peleka your case koti, there is another process that proceeds in court, which also takes some time that IPOA does not control. And let me link this to also a suggestion that Brian Ogola made that, in some of these cases, IPOA should be granted prosecutorial powers. And that is one of the recommendations we made, because IPOA does not have prosecutorial powers. We investigate the cases, we forward to the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the Director of Public Prosecutions makes their own independent decision whether to prosecute or not. But we've made a recommendation, and it is up for Parliament to decide whether or not to grant IPOA those prosecutorial powers. We also asked a question on, and this is Mizani 254, on the issue of compensation. In terms of cases of police brutality, do we have to wait until the case is complete? And I guess what you're asking is whether we should wait for the case to be completed, the criminal case to be completed in court before a recommendation for compensation is made. No, we don't have to wait until the case is completed the criminal case is completed in court. In fact, there are many cases where we've made recommendations for compensation even before the criminal case has been completed in court. Because what happens is, once we have found that there is unlawful use of force by the police, we can recommend compensation. And sometimes victims take this up and file constitutional petitions and civil claims for compensation even before the criminal case is completed. And IPOA appears in court with its investigation report and supports the case for compensation. And victims have been compensated even before the criminal case is completed, because the standards are different. The standard in a criminal case is beyond reasonable doubt, and the standard in a civil case is actually on a balance of probability. So that can happen even before the criminal case is completed. Mizani also asked about how do we coordinate with the Internal Affairs Unit. We do coordinate with the Internal Affairs Unit in terms of their mandate. The Internal Affairs Unit is mandated to actually undertake disciplinary cases of misconduct against the police. And what normally happens is, if somebody is dissatisfied with the way that case has been done by the Internal Affairs Unit, they normally come to IPOA to complain, and IPOA can take over that case. And so there is that relationship between us and the Internal Affairs Unit, where people can complain to the Internal Affairs Unit, but if they are dissatisfied with how the Internal Affairs Unit has handled the case, they then can come to IPOA, and IPOA can take over that case if there is reason to actually take over that case. But that relationship needs to be built more, and I agree with you, Mizani 254. We need to coordinate more with the Internal Affairs Unit, and also to sensitize the public that it's not just IPOA that deals with issues of police misconduct. We also have other agencies such as the Internal Affairs Unit that deals with these cases. With regard to, I think the question on statistics, I've given some of them in terms of the number of cases we have in court. We currently have over 230 cases, as I've said. Over 30 officers have been convicted based on the cases. We have completed over 5,900 investigations currently completed by IPOA with various recommendations. And we have a lot of files that are also pending with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to make their decisions whether to charge or not. But that process is not within IPOA to control. That is a different process out there. But I agree also with what has been raised here, that IPOA also needs to do a lot more in terms of sensitizing the public with regard to its mandate and also being more visible in certain places. But the challenge is, like I said, we are also threadbare in terms of human resource. We are supposed to cover all police stations and all across the entire country. But currently we are only in 9 regional offices. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu hatuna staff wa kucover the entire country. We only have 77, for instance, about 77 investigators at the moment to cover the entire country. That number is not sufficient to actually handle over the entire country where you have over 120,000 police officers. So pia sisi tuko na challenge ya human resource, na nilivyosema tuko na pia challenge ya budgetary constraints ambayo we are also asking Parliament to assist us also be able to expand ourselves by getting more people in and also get budget to actually be able to handle the large number of cases we are currently dealing with. I believe I've covered most of it. Jesse, maybe you can remind me if I've left something out.
No, we're good, Festus. Thank you for that. And we seem to be pressed for time, so maybe we can start with the final comments. Chris, it's good to have you back. Maybe I'll start with you. After everything has been said, how moving forward, how then do we find a balancing act as a country between maintaining law and order and upholding human rights? Because at the end of the day, we've seen shops, businesses, being vandalized and looted. Chris Otieno, over to you.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the questions. Sorry for that short delay. Allow me first to respond to the question asked why goons are walking around with policemen. Basically, we are telling ourselves. Sometimes back, one of our honorable members stated categorically that in one time where there was Mandamano in this country, they organized for a vehicle to be touched. Now, when you look at that, when you consider that statement and what we saw in this Sabasaba Mandamano, where police seem to work alongside people would call goons, it basically tells us that police were in the knowledge that these persons were going to be dispersed, and that knowledge must have come from a high position of command, telling the policemen that this will happen in this and this particular format. Also, the same speaks to us that the number of personnel, boots on the ground deployed by the government was one thing at that particular time. Therefore, they needed a multiplicity in the strength, number of policemen, and the only option they seem to have had for that particular time was to bring in a political solution, which would be to bring in goods. What is the way forward? I keep crying for my country time and again. We have these kind of problems when we lose lives, and when we show ourselves like not being able to handle this kind of problems. We are telling ourselves here that we know very well that in our country there are a lot of people who are quite qualified in addressing security issues. The current crop of advisors whom I think are who surround the president, the kind of actions we are seeing coming from these people are quite wanting. We are saying that the best advisors are security persons who will tell you the truth, no matter how much it hurts. If it is found that the tactics we are using to combat these mandamanos is not right, then we must speak the truth. Issuing an order of shoot to kill whereas these persons are not enemies of state is wrong. Where we are seeing goons working with police and we are being told that we'll be taken to court on counts of terrorism, are we telling ourselves that we shall take the state on state-sponsored terrorism to a court of law? When you look at all these things, it seems that nothing makes sense. It is only the end result that political interference in the operations of security operators of this country is what is causing us or putting us in this level of limbo and this level of quagmire. So what we need to do is to completely find a way to dissociate politics from our security operators, create independence of these organs, and ensure they have enough required resources, not politically instigated, but depending on the security or the risk situation of the country to enable them to deploy the right solution or the right intervention when we are faced with risky situations. So there needs to be a review of how we conduct our risk assessments, how we look at risk agencies, how we look at risk velocity, and all this, and how they are moving, and go back and deploy the right interventions or risk mitigating factors as soon as possible, and also continue to monitor, evaluate, analyze, and have learning lessons that we derive from all these aspects, from all these occurrences that have occurred in the country. If we don't do that, we'll see a continued occurrence of people losing their lives, continue to complain of police brutality or extrajudicial killing, continue to complain of political interference, and that becomes an unending story with infinity end for this particular country. So we need a lot of intervention, a lot of soul searching, and the dialogue that was spoken about, that could be another platform where we offer ourselves voluntarily to find redress for the bad things that happen in our nation. We cannot say that is not a solution. It is part of the long solution that we require. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chris, for that. Wanjira, coming to you, even as you make your final remarks, allow me to quote the grandmother of the late Julia Wangui, who accused the government of turning a blind eye on matters affecting Kenyans. She said that it is a system that seems designed to crush and not protect. As you give your final remarks, perhaps, how do we move on?
I agree with Julia's grandmother. And I think it is probably lost on us that we are currently existing in a neo-colonial state that is borrowing or rather mirroring so much of the colonial state that we, our grandparents and great-great-grandparents had to contend with. I think we need to understand that the struggle that the Kenya Land and Freedom Army were waging was not won. It was hijacked by Kenyatta and the home guards that are the police of today. In fact, I was writing a piece on it that I'll probably publish with the Standard once I finish, because history helps us contextualize the present. The present did not just happen. We did not just wake up here where we're burying 12-year-olds who are being shot by police, where police brutality is the order of the day, where young people are being charged with terrorism. So I think it's important for us to really grasp our history so that we are able to figure out correctly how best we move forward with this alternative. I don't have any hope with this system giving justice for all the people we have lost. I mean, we've been shouting to have it. The only way forward is Ruto must go, which we have to wait for 2027 if a miracle does not happen along the way where we remove Ruto from power. But we have to organize politically to be able to approach this system of oppression that has been systemic and endemic for a long time. But I also want to tell the people of Kenya not to lose hope, not to feel drained, not to feel like this is the end. I want us to remember what we have been able to do at such a short time. And on the blood of all those we have lost, continue forging on ahead, continue with our patriotism, continue with our courage, but be strategic. Now is the time to go back to the drawing board. Now is the time to consolidate the gains we made. Now is the time to plan long term, that all these people we have lost get justice eventually. Ruto will not give them justice. Your killer will not give you justice. The judiciary has been compromised. Yeah, so I think that is what I would be able to say, and remind us that our fight is to ensure the implementation of the Kenyan Constitution. Tekeleza Katiba. When you tweet, please work a hashtag, Tekeleza Katiba. When you tag these people, please work a hashtag, Tekeleza Katiba. Our Constitution is being violated, and there is a plot to completely subvert it so that we are in an actual dictatorship. So to push Katiba iweze kutekelezwa so that we can move ahead with our other plans. Thank you so much, Standard, for having me. I appreciate, and I yield.
And thank you so much, Wanjira, for making time. Festus, I'll let you have the final say. And even as you give us your final take, you earlier on mentioned the fact that IPOA needs to be better. But we don't need words. We need you to walk the talk.
Hello, thank you. First, let me start by saying, I think to recall the main reason why we had this forum is with regard to use of force and firearms. And just to recap that there is a legal framework with regard to use of force and firearms. And so it is important for anyone, all police officers using force and firearms to use force and firearms with regard and bound by that legal framework. Actually, I think you've said that IPOA needs to do better. When I said IPOA needs to do better, I contextualized that what I meant was to do better in terms of sensitizing the public on IPOA's mandate and what it does. But let me end by saying this in terms of what the authority does and its mandate. And I'll also reference what one of the speakers here said, that's Brian Ogola. Now, the authority's mandate is limited in terms of what it can do, in terms of holding the police accountable and conducting investigations. The authority cannot resolve political problems. That is not its mandate. There are aspects that are outside the authority's mandate. The persons, for instance, and there was a question that was asked, what policy recommendations has IPOA made to restructure the National Police Service? The authority cannot restructure the National Police Service. The people who can restructure the National Police Service is us as Kenyans who will decide on how we want the structure of the National Police Service to look like. And when we are talking about the National Police Service and policing in Kenya, when we promulgated the 2010 Constitution, Kenyans had an idea of a vision of what they wanted their National Police Service to look like. And that National Police Service was one that was meant to serve Kenyans. And Kenyans can still achieve what they wanted with regard to the National Police Service by holding to those ideals and making recommendations in terms of the structure and how they want the National Police Service to look. It is not one institution that can be able to do this. To have the police service we want is something that is an obligation that all of us as Kenyans have to actually achieve that National Police Service and that vision that we want of a National Police Service that serves the public, is accountable, and actually is service-oriented to the civilians and the citizens of this country. It is not a one institution job. It is a job for the entire, for everyone in this country, for all of us as Kenyans, so that even our children growing up can grow up in a country whereby we have a National Police Service that we want as civilians. So let me leave it at that. Let me say the authority is doing its level best in terms of its limited mandate, but the bigger mandate of actually having a National Police Service we want as a country is an obligation we all have as Kenyans. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Festus. We truly, truly appreciate you taking your time to give us some semblance of a way forward in terms of how IPOA is moving forward with some of these cases of police excesses and extrajudicial killings. I'm seeing here James Nyambane asking, for IPOA to act, must there be a complaint filed even when police brutality is captured on camera? Maybe that's one of the issues we didn't bring out clearly. But all in all, Festus, we truly appreciate your time. He's the Deputy Director of Legal Services at the Independent Policing Oversight Authority. Thanks so much for making time. Wanjira Wanjiru, social justice and political activist. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Equally appreciate the presence of Chris Otieno, who's a security and risk expert, took his time to break down this conversation from a security point of view, and equally appreciate Ndego Wanjiru in his absence. He joined us a little bit earlier on, an advocate of the High Court, just breaking down the legal expertise and the legal angles when it comes to this particular conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, even to those who are able to take the mic and speak, we definitely appreciate your input. Remember, as members of the Fourth Estate, we strive to put some of these issues at the forefront, because that's our work. We don't ask questions for ourselves. We ask these questions for you back at home. So for all those who are able to speak or share comments as well, make sure we continue with this interaction. My name is Jesse Rogers. On behalf of Ashley Mazuri and the entire team, we just want to say good evening. Thank you so much for joining the space. Remember, we hold these conversations on Wednesdays. So
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
thank you so much. Bye-bye.